Is the cost of your homeowner's insurance going through the roof?
New details on a big rate hike request by two insurance companies.
Home insurance costs are on the rise across the country.
The average Coloradan saw their home insurance premium go up by 51.7%.
Well, believe it or not, some of this is actually due to what roofers are doing. And I'm going to explain in this video what some of those things are that roofers are doing to exploit insurance companies and insurance claims, and sometimes even downright scam insurance companies and homeowners. And in the end, that winds up costing you hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars, even if you never file an insurance claim. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, well, Mr. Roofer Guy, if you own a roofing company, why are you throwing roofers under the bus? Well, that's a great question, and it deserves a good answer. First of all, let me be really clear that it's the dishonest and the unethical roofers that are scamming insurance companies and homeowners. But there's a lot of roofers out there who want to do things the right way and aren't going to take advantage of their clients. These type of roofing companies are going to work to guide homeowners to do things the right way. So I'm not saying that every roofer is to blame, but here are 4 things that roofers are doing that are causing your insurance costs to go up. The first thing is paying deductibles for the homeowner. Now, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. If a roofer is going to pay my deductible, well, that doesn't cost me money. That ends up saving me money. But here's why it actually does end up costing you money. First of all, it's because it encourages more people to file claims. And the more people that file claims, the more of a loss the insurance company is going to take. The bigger the loss the insurance company has to take, the more they're going to try to make that up. And I'm going to explain to you how they make up those losses here in just a little bit. But here's a major problem with roofers paying insurance deductibles. And you probably already know this, but it's insurance fraud. And in many states, most states actually, it's against the law as well.
The roofers who offer to waive a homeowner's deductible could land themselves in jail.
So with all these people who are incentivized to file claims because they think that somehow they're going to get a free roof out of the deal, more and more claims get filed year over year, which ends up costing the insurance company millions of dollars. Now they're going to try to absorb that loss by doing a couple things. Number one, they're going to implement changes to your policy to make you pay more of the share of any future claims. And they do that, number one, by raising your deductible. So a lot of people used to have flat deductibles. Maybe it was like $500, $1,000. Now those flat deductibles, even though they're still a flat deductible, they're going up and up and up. But what most insurance companies are doing is they're basing the deductible on the price of the house. And it's a percentage of that price. And so if you have a $500,000 home, you have a home that's worth $500,000 and you have a 2% deductible, then your deductible is $10,000. So the next time you file a claim, instead of having a flat $1,000 deductible, now you've got a $10,000 deductible. So you see how that works? Because the insurance companies are trying to recover their losses, they're passing the share of any future replacements or repairs onto you, the homeowner. The other thing that they're doing is they're changing coverage type. And what I mean by that is most people have what's called replacement cost value coverage, which means that if their roof needs to be replaced, the insurance company pays the full cost of that, except your deductible. Well, they're moving people to an actual cash value policy, which means that the insurance company has a much smaller share in the cost. So we've had homeowners who have had actual cash value policies, and they end up having like 50 or 60% share in the cost of the roof replacement. That's what's happening to homeowners. In addition to the fact that your premiums are still going up. Your premiums are going up, but your benefits are going down. Another thing that roofers are doing that ends up costing insurance companies money as well as homeowners money is they're vandalizing property. And we hear these kinds of stories from adjusters and homeowners.
Prout never gave them permission to visit his home, let alone get on it.
Clapped the ladder up against the house and immediately went up and started tearing shingles off.
And this is usually going to happen if there's no damage on a roof or not enough damage to warrant an adjuster approving a claim for a full replacement. And what's happening is then the roofer ends up falsifying damage. He ends up committing damage on the roof in an attempt to try to get the insurance company to approve a claim. Well, how do they damage a roof? You might be wondering. Well, there's a few different ways that they do it. One time I heard an adjuster who told me about a time that he was on a roof with a roofer and denied the claim because there wasn't enough damage on the roof. And as he drove away, he thought, you know what, I better just check on this. And so he drove around the block and came back, and the roofer was on the roof with a hammer hitting the shingles, trying to falsify damage on the roof. Another way that they'll do it is they'll put a golf ball in a sock and hit the roof like that. So you got to remember that if a roofer is falsifying damage on your roof, that means that your roof didn't need to be replaced. It didn't need to have an approved claim. You didn't need to get your roof replaced at that point. But if a roofer has vandalized your roof, then now you do have a roof that needs to be replaced. But the problem is that now you have to file a separate insurance claim for vandalism to your property. And the claim has to be to cover criminal activity that has occurred on your property. So you end up with two insurance claims just within a matter of a few weeks. So the next thing that roofers do that ends up costing insurance companies so much money is to convince homeowners to file unnecessary claims. So I call these promiscuous claims. And the reason for that is because either there's very little damage on the roof or maybe there's no damage, but the roofer is hoping that the adjuster that gets assigned to come out and look at it is either very inexperienced, very favorable, or just ignorant of what roof damage really is. Or it could be that he's hoping that he gets a commission-hungry adjuster, because some adjusters do make a commission based on the claim amount. Recently, we had a 95-year-old lady give us a call, and she had had a door-to-door roofer come to her house, inspect her roof, and told her that she needed to file a claim, which she did. But then she called us and asked us to come inspect the roof. And when we got there, we realized that there was very little damage on the roof. Now, technically, would an insurance company replace her roof? Probably so. But at 95 years old, does she need to file a claim for very superficial damage for her roof? In my opinion, probably not. And here's the problem with this lady's situation is that she has a very high deductible. This is a 95-year-old lady living on a fixed income who now has to pay a high deductible to replace a roof that she really didn't need to replace. And so this is an example, again, I think, of a roofer who is using what I call the spaghetti approach. Just throwing everything against the wall to see what's going to stick. I think that this roofer was hoping that he would get a favorable adjuster who was going to approve the claim, or maybe even, like I said, an ignorant or an inexperienced adjuster, or a commission-hungry adjuster. So you have to remember that the more claims get filed, the more that costs an insurance company money. Now, if it's a legitimate claim, of course, file the claim. But if the damage to your roof is so superficial that it's not going to cause you a problem while you are in the home, stop filing claims. Because like I say, the losses that the insurance companies have to absorb, they pass on to you. And that ends up costing you money for the rest of the time that you own a home that you have to insure. Now, the next thing that roofers do that ends up costing insurance companies so much money, and you as homeowners, this is the granddaddy of them all. And it's just simply that they steal your money. And this costs insurance companies and homeowners more money than anything else. There was a contractor here in the city where I live who a few years ago collected deposit payments from homeowners totaling almost $500,000. And then that contractor just skipped town.
Keyline wrote him a check up front, but Kolklischer never came back.
He took the money evidently and had a real good Christmas.
So those homeowners were left without the ability to get a new roof because they either paid that roofer a deposit out of their own funds, or they gave that roofer their insurance check, their first insurance check. Well, here's what happens with that is if you give that check to a roofer and he disappears, then if you tell your insurance company that that happened, they're not going to feel sorry for you and give you a replacement check. You are out that money. So what's the best way to avoid that particular scam? Well, in my opinion, it's not to give the roofer money up front until you have materials delivered to your property. That way, if the roofer does skip out, you've at least got material that you've paid for, and you can hire somebody else to do the job with your bought and paid for materials. Another thing to remember is that if your roofer is scamming your insurance company or exploiting your insurance company or your insurance claim, that doesn't just cost the insurance company money. We can't think, well, good, let's stick it to those greedy insurance companies. That ends up costing you money through higher premiums and lower coverage for the rest of the time that you have a home that you need to insure. So what should you do? Well, insurance rates are never going to go back down, I don't believe. But to help resolve the problem moving forward, first, stop filing so many insurance claims. Only file claims when you absolutely need to. Second, take your time. Think it through before you file a claim. Figure out whether you really need to file a claim or not. And third, just get a second opinion from a different roofing contractor about the condition of your roof. Well, what else should you do? I think you should watch this video right here or click this playlist right here.